Hey friends, today we're working on a good old 2012 Hyundai Accent. Now I got this thing cheap because they complained about oil consumption. Now that was a problem that plagued the Hyundais and Kias from right around 2011, 2012, let's say 2010 even roughly, to 2000, probably now actually 22, 23. We are in 25 now of course already, but I think the newer ones might not be as bad, or we have yet to find out. We'll see. Looks like my hose is kind of damaged here already, but anyway, hopefully it'll still work. So anyway, it was more of an issue with the 1.8s, 2 liters, 2.4s, I believe, and even as far as the 3.3 V6s. We only got the 1.6 in these, the GDI 1.6 in North America. And these weren't as bad. They were complaining about oil consumption issues. I went ahead and did a compression test, which is very easy to do on these. You just, of course, pop that off. And then just suction cups that, those rubber suction boots or whatever that hold it in place. You got these here. And anyway, you just unplug the coils, pull these gray tabs up here. I'll zoom in a bit. Pull those gray tabs up on each one. And then there might be a press fitting there. I can't even remember now. This one seems to barely be on there to begin with, but maybe I didn't push them on there hard enough. Yeah, look at that. Mine's not even locking. Something's not quite right there. I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, pull those off, unlock them, pull them off. And yeah, I'm curious now what the devil's going on with that one. They were all like that, I noticed, after I put them back on again. But anyway, 10 mil bowls, pull your coil packs out. And then, of course, spark plugs, I believe, are a 5/8. And then, of course, compression test. That's easy. If you don't know how to do one well, then maybe you shouldn't be messing with these. But, I mean, I guess I can teach you. You can get a compression tester kit, pretty cheap. Harbor Freight, Princess Auto, probably Canadian Tire, depending on where you are in the world. Amazon. And they all will look pretty much the same. Come on now. Out a bit. There we go. Just like that. I prefer the boots. They seem to be more accurate because these hoses seem to fail after 10 uses or so, they seem to fail. So put that rod in there, and then all I do is simply press down. I think they say you should have them warmed up before you do a compression test. I don't think it really matters. I've never noticed much of a variance. But anyway, lots of info on that online. Pull these out, pull the plugs out, stick those in, have somebody basically floor it in the car and crank it until the gauge stops moving, and then write down the number, of course, release the pressure, and move on to the next one. Pretty straightforward. But you might start losing compression if you're on a direct injection motor, if your intake valves get gummed up, because what happens on a direct injection engine is there is nothing to wash your intake valves, whereas on an MPI or multi-port injection or any regular fuel injected engine that isn't direct injected, or even carbureted engines for that matter, are the same way. You have the fuel going through your intake at least a ways. It'll wash over the intake valves, and it keeps the intake valves clean. GDI engines are known to gum up the intake valves, and eventually they won't close properly anymore, which can cause compression loss. Really bad compression loss in some cases. You can look that up online. And to clean them isn't much to it. You want to get yourself some GDI cleaner. This actually might work too. This one says something about works to clean GDI intake valves as well. Seafoam spray. But anyway, you grab you this stuff with a hose. I've already got one over there. And this one, to take the intake off, is pretty straightforward. First, what I do is I unscrew the clamp on the intake with a 10 mil, and then pop the top off, which is basically some clips is all. You just undo these clips up there, and then you pull the boot off of there, pop that out, and then to remove this intake box here, you got 3 bolts. So it'll sit in there like this, like that, and you've got, where are they here now? I can't even really tell actually. But anyway, you've got actually one there, and one up there. So yeah, pretty straightforward, not much to it. Yeah, it sits like this, sorry, because that goes in there. So anyway, pretty straightforward. Take it out. Apparently these don't have a mass airflow sensor or anything in the intake, so you won't even get any codes. I'm doing a transmission service on this thing right now anyway. But yeah, they say you want to warm it up and take this and basically spray it into your intake, fog your intake for, let's say 1 second blasts while somebody tries to keep the RPM at 2000 or so. There's instructions on here that tell you the same. I wouldn't necessarily blast the whole can in there. I would probably do half a can or so. Like I said, again, I think they say to have the engine warmed up. And then there's instructions. Typically, you'll let it sit after you blast it like that for a while. The last little bit, I would just do straight shot for, probably 4 seconds or so. And then let it idle for, maybe a few seconds even, and then shut it down. And then ideally, you want to let it sit and heat soak, if you can call it, I say heat soak, but yeah, you just want to let it soak in the heat for probably an hour or so, maybe more. And then after you do that, then start it again and go for a drive. Now, I'd be careful when you go for a drive. Listen for knocking, because there might be stuff letting go. I'd let it idle for a bit before I go. And listen very carefully. It'll almost sound crispy, like crunchy, like a ticking almost. Listen for ticks and feel for shakes. I would take it easy on it for a bit until that clears up. Once you've been driving it for a couple of minutes, get a little heavier on the throttle, maybe even shift it manually just to get your RPMs up higher. Shift it into manual mode, and then, hold your RPMs as high as 3,000 for starters and go a little bit higher. And if you feel a shaking or a jerking, then I would ease off a bit and run it at a little lower RPM for a bit. But then eventually, as it warms up, I'd run it pretty good, actually. That's what I've always done with my GDIs. I'd go wide open even. Maybe short shift it a little bit at first. These are great with their manual shifting. They actually seem to shift where you want them to. A lot of cars, that manual shift option is pointless. But anyway, I would go, maybe wide open and then shift through the gears, short shift it at 4,000 or whatever. And then after a good run, I'd run it, wide open for a bit just to clear it out a bit. And you'll probably notice huge plumes of smoke out the back, just so you're aware. And you got to be careful how much you do that too, because you don't want to mess up your cats. But I have never had an issue that way. And then they say you want to drive it on the highway for at least 10 minutes. And yeah, I would actually repeat that process a few times, and I would repeat it once every, let's say, 20 to 50,000, depending on your driving style, if you want to keep these from gumming up the intake valves. But again, another issue they had was piston rings. Piston rings in there would gum up, and then the oiling rings can't keep the cylinder clean anymore. They let the oil come by on top, and then you're burning oil. And this one, I can't remember, what did they say? This one is burning a liter or a quart for every 1,000 or so, I think they said. 1,000, maybe 2,000, which is honestly considered normal on these. I think even the owner's manual tells you that. It's way less than one that would actually be properly considered to be burning oil on these, even though that is much more than I would like. But anyway, what I did in a case like that is actually, again, same concept. If the compression test, you pull your plugs and coils out. And then, same concept. I actually spray this in there, and I fog it in the cylinder, give it a real good blast. You might need a longer hose than this. I've got a longer one still somewhere. Like, even this one is really too short, honestly. If you can get you a longer one somewhere, I would recommend even a longer one. And then stick it in the spark plug hole, make sure it's all the way in there, and even try to spin it in there as you're spraying it. And I would spray it for, say, a good 5 seconds per pot. And then I actually did it a few times. I let it soak like that for a bit, leave the plugs out, ideally in a garage or something, but if you don't have a garage, maybe just cover it and close your hood. Let it soak for overnight, if you can, even. And then I come out in the morning, and then I'd spin the motor a little bit, and it's good to have paper towel laying over across here, and maybe have somebody else spin it while you hold it so it doesn't blast nasty stuff everywhere. Sometimes it will do that. And then I would do it again. I'd let it soak again. You don't have to do it all the time, but I would, if that doesn't do enough, I would try maybe like 5 of these back to back. Do that, soak it, run it for a while, soak it again, run it for a while, and eventually I think you'll definitely have improvements in your oil consumption. This might be real handy for all them Kia Hyundai issues. Now, I haven't driven this one enough now yet to see, we just bought it, but to see if it actually does still consume oil. I'm hoping to get that opportunity. We run all our diesels on waste oil, so it costs us virtually nothing to run them, including our little diesel Volkswagens. So we don't run gas cars very much anymore. If you're curious about that, check out the other videos on my YouTube. But anyway, that's basically it to cleaning these out. Like I said, the GDI cleaning and the actual engine ring cleaning. And I actually kind of alternated between the Seafoam and the GDI cleaner. And again, I don't know how effective it's been, but I know it definitely has made improvements. This one had a little bit of a tick chatter even at first, and I think that's much quieter now already too, just from that little bit of soaking I did. Maybe it's just placebo. But anyway, that's what I would recommend. Some people say B12 works very well. Was it Berryman B12? What else? There's other things that are apparently very, very effective too. Some people will go as far as to just spray straight water in the intake. And yeah, they'll just fog their engines with intake or fog their engines with water for a bit. I would, I'd be very careful with that, and you'll want to change your oil after you do any of this stuff. But yeah, like that old Polaris over there, I did some fogging with that one. Didn't make a difference. That one consumes oil pretty bad. I was hoping to clean it up a bit anyway, but sorry, just dealing with the kids here. But anyway, like I said, it's kind of an unorganized video again. I apologize. But yeah, not much to it. Like I said, fog them like that, and hopefully it makes a difference. No guarantee, because like I said, it was a very common Hyundai Kia problem. But I'm going to do that and try to stay on it for this one. Again, I just serviced the transmission, but I'll have that on a different video as well. And yeah, I think that's it. Covered a little bit of the GDI cleaning, covered a little bit of the piston ring cleaning, or at least attempting to. Another thing you can do is probably on Amazon or wherever, get you a little camera, and come on now, you can order your little snake camera like this unit here, and actually stick that on the cylinders and take a look, see what it looks like in there. These are pretty cheap. You can get them, I guess, at probably Harbor Freight or any hardware store. Princess Auto, I think, is where I got this one. And stick that little snake camera into your engine, and then inspect. I was just inspecting this one, and it's still got nice cross hatching and everything, so I was pretty impressed with that. But anyway, be a very, very helpful tool as well. Very helpful tool. Kids don't really take a look at anything before they move the machines out of the garage. It's unfortunate, just running over stuff. But anyway, yeah, sorry for all the rambling, sorry for the unorganized video, but hope this helps somebody. And if you have any questions, comments, rants, complaints, roasts, leave them down below. And as always, may God bless you.